Hello and welcome to the Crypto Club and Digital Assets Weekly Catch-Up on Zoom. It is Sunday, the 11th of June 2023, and as is always the case, we're going to be talking about whatever people want to talk about. Some weeks we talk about blockchain, crypto, DeFi, NFTs, ICOs, STOs, TGEs, metaverse, all sorts of three-letter acronyms and much more besides. Sessions are open to novice and experts alike. Do take a look in the link below which says how you can come along to future sessions. So with that, let's see who's going to come join us today. Russell, hello. It's good of you to join us.
Thank you.
We've got Lisa's joined us as well. I'm not sure if Lisa's connecting okay. What brings you along today then, Russell?
I don't know. I missed last week, but I was there the week before. I think I'm just
Yeah.
like conversation really. If I've got time to spare on a Sunday evening, I don't mind popping on. So.
Well, that's it. When I set the group up originally, it used to be actually a physical in-person meeting
Right.
in a local coffee shop in the town where I live. And I set it exactly so that it ran at the time I happened to be in the coffee shop anyway. So on the basis that if no one showed up, I was going there for a cup of coffee. And if they did, then that was a bonus. So
How long have you been doing this thing, Gary?
So online, it's since the lockdowns took place, but I actually set the group up, I think it was a year, possibly 2 years before that, which was simply when I started getting into the crypto side of things, so around about 2017, I realized that there was a lot to learn, and I actually quite enjoy building communities and helping each other learn from each other and that. So that's how we did it from there.
Oh, that's good. So what sort of demographic of viewer do you tend to have then?
So taking a look at the stats, it says, unsurprisingly, 2/3 are male. A fair amount are based in the UK, with quite a few coming in from the US and India. And then wherever really beyond that. Age-wise, I don't think I can get a breakdown of age on YouTube, but I think from other stats I've seen, it's again unsurprisingly the 18 to 60-year-old kind of category usually.
Yeah, it's quite a wide category in it. Do you find they tend to be more novices in the space, or you get a bit of mix of experience?
It's a real mix. So we've got a couple of people who've just joined us. In fact, we've got Fernando, where you'll see it says relays.io. So Fernando, or JT as he's known, is a very experienced person in the space, does a lot in the cybersecurity space. I'm sure he'll introduce himself soon as well. And I see another familiar name there of Nat Cole. So, Nathaniel, hi.
Yeah, how's it going, man? How's it going, Gary? I haven't been in for a minute. Yeah, how's it going?
Good. We're just saying about the kind of the participant demographics of people who either come to these sessions or watch the recordings. And certainly on the recording side of things, I'd see some people who are very experienced, some people who are novices. Because I run so many other WhatsApp and Telegram groups now, I get to recognize a lot of names and faces, of which you are one. So maybe for everyone else who's here today, you might want to quickly explain who you are and what you're up to.
Thank you very much, Gary, and same to yourself. I know we've probably been joining in and out of the same spaces. When I joined, and you were speaking about like 2016, 2017, which is around the time that I kind of started a professional career in the crypto industry. More from a consulting standpoint, I actually started off just getting local businesses to adopt Bitcoin wallets and accept Bitcoin for goods. And that kind of turned into kind of me starting my own consultancy, and then a few years of kind of bouncing around the industry, doing different things, such as advising and consulting field. I started to build my own project, an education project that I worked on for some time, and it didn't really get off the ground. But I ended up towards the end of 2021, which I think I joined back. I connected back with you probably. I think it's the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. And I started to work with the Stacks blockchain to kind of like work out a more people building on, let's say, the base layer, which is the Bitcoin ecosystem. And I've got now an NFT project on built using Bitcoin, and I run the Stacks London community, which is the representative for Stacks Okay, so yeah, that's
cool.
a brief history.
Excellent. I won't ask Lisa to introduce herself because she would appear to be actually be riding a horse at the moment as opposed to just looking after them.
I can. Before I lose you, because I'm going to lose you because I haven't got much battery and because I have a horse. So yeah, I'm just a big crypto enthusiast. I've been in since 2017. I seem to have made a lot of money, lost a lot of money. I'm totally in on this whole system collapsing around us, and it's a mess, and it's complete manipulation. So that's where I stand, and I really do have a very naughty horse in my hand, but pushing me with his head. Can't see because of my background. I'm being itched on by a horse. Will you stop that? So anyway, hi. I'm lovely to meet you. I'll just listen now.
No problem. Thanks for joining us, Lisa. Don't forget, don't give him too many carrots. You don't want him to get colic. Yeah. That's great. And we've got Mr. Parks on. Peter, hello. Oh, in fact, he's just disappeared for a minute. He's gone away. Oh, he's come back. Perfect timing. Go on, Peter. Come off mute and say hello.
Yeah, hi Gary. Finally, I'm on. I didn't realise it was on Zoom. I keep seeing your little shorts on YouTube, and didn't realise I have to come off the platform and get onto Zoom.
Yeah. I did start running these as kind of like live lives at one point, where I was doing it directly on YouTube whilst I was in a physical meeting in a local coffee shop. The problem I found is that if you've got a camera or whatever recording stuff and streaming it live, people sometimes forget that you're live. And so they come in and they go, hey, I'm going away this weekend. You know where my house is currently? Well, that's going to be empty for 2 weeks and the dog's going away. It's like, no, don't. So what I tend to do is not live stream these now. So, Peter, good to see you. And I guess you're in the UK these days after your enforced break in the Far East for a while.
Yeah, I've been here now for over a year, chasing up the NHS. The Joyce, I think the last lady was talking about the systemic collapse, and it's all planned, isn't it?
Mm. It's all kind of crazy. We've got a couple of other new faces and names as well. Resh, hey, it's thanks for joining us. Do you want to say hi and who you are on that? It's another man on mute.
Sorry about that. There's always another clown on the show. I'm Resh. I'm part of Stacks London. So we promote basically building on Bitcoin, and Nat just shared in terms of what's going on here. And I said I would love to join the call and just hear what everybody has to share.
Cool. So we got two people from Stacks on today then. Is that right?
Indeed.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the party, folks. And Elena's just joined us as well. Elena's one of the regulars. She's an absolute superstar. But Elena, do you want to say hi and who you are and where you are?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am the same person as I always am, at the same place in Ireland. And looking forward to our conversation tonight.
I always value Elena's presence at these sessions because she came on originally as a novice and has learned more and more about this space. But what she's got a particularly brilliant niche at is sometimes asking really simple, basic questions that people don't think of asking. And she asks them in such a wonderful way. For anyone who's ever watched Columbo, the TV series, where the detective's just leaving the room and it's like, oh, just one more thing. So Elena's great because we'll have loads of people talking about all sorts of stuff and we'll going through all sorts, and she'll say, in the second minute of this call, you said, and she just thinks about it. Anyway, she's a wonderful addition and has become exceedingly knowledgeable and helpful in this space. So thanks for joining us, Elena. Right.
Thank you very much.
I think that's everybody. JT seems to be sailing silent at the moment. Do you want to say hello, Fernando? This is where he's now frantically putting his spoon down because he's probably having something to eat.
Hi, guys. I'm just out and about. That's why.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. Which country are you in today?
Lovely London.
Okay, cool. Excellent. So we've got a nice mix of people here. In fact, we've just got someone joining on an e-phone as well, no problem. For those who've been to these sessions before, you'll know how this works, or if you watch the recordings, we've got no agenda whatsoever. I don't come along with a list of things to talk about. It really is down to whatever you folks want to talk about. So for the novices, if they have any basic questions, this is a great time to ask. And the more basic, the better. And if anyone's actually running a project that they want to talk about, as long as it's not a sales pitch, and it's not a pump and dump, and it's not a token sale, and it's kind of thing, more than happy to listen to things again. So I don't know, guys from Stacks, do you want to share a little bit more about what Stacks community is about?
You want to go, Resh? Or?
You go for it, mate. I'll jump in.
Okay, yeah. So Stacks is, just to kind of explain and give a bit of background on what Stacks is. It's a layer 1 blockchain that is built and connected to Bitcoin, deeply connected to Bitcoin, in a way that transactions that are written in Stacks blocks are written into Bitcoin blocks. So it inherits quite a bit of Bitcoin security when it comes to transactions. It does also, on some downside, inherit the block time of Bitcoin. But that is something that is currently being worked on with introducing subnets to the Stacks layer. So you could kind of say it is a layer 2 for Bitcoin, but it's also its own independent layer 1. Therefore, things such as Bitcoin DeFi, Bitcoin NFTs, so on and so forth have pretty much been around for a long time. What a lot of people don't really know about Stacks itself is that funnily enough, as you said again, I'm not sure in any way at all, but Stacks was the only ICO offering that is actually registered with the SEC, the only one in the world, right? So if you go back and look in history, Stacks actually goes back so far, it goes back to the project Namecoin, which was actually the second blockchain that was built after Bitcoin. Well, Mastercoin really was, but Namecoin is a product of Mastercoin. So the founders of Stacks, Maniv Ali and Ryan Shea, they started to build something, what was it called? Sorry, hit me with it. But they started to build decentralized IDs, basically. And this goes back to as far back as basically Satoshi was still here and still commenting in Bitcoin Talk. And had commented about BitDNS, which was a project to create decentralized domain names and identifiers for blockchain. And one of the comments that Stacks actually launched its Genesis block with that Satoshi made was around being a separate network that is anchored to Bitcoin that could be able to do such things. So the team have been working since 2014, and it was previously called Blockstack. I joined in about 2021 because I kind of saw what was going on with the NFT stuff and saw everybody was going so crazy about NFTs that they were going to forget exactly why we were all here in the first place. So I started looking around building the NFT Clothing Club, which is what we're building now. And Resh also works for me on that as well, which is a digital fashion brand and that is built on Stacks and anchored to Bitcoin. So that's a quick little background about Stacks and about the Stacks London or STX LDN. We represent the Stacks Foundation as a community-led organization, so that we don't necessarily paid by the Stacks Foundation, although they do help us with some funding to build grassroots activities for Stacks and primarily to teach people about Bitcoin. So yeah, that's what we are, and that's what we do.
Cool. And I was just going to throw one in because if I don't ask it, I know Elena will ask it. Mm-hmm. As there's certain tech terms that come in there. You're talking layer 1, layer 2. I think most people are okay now that layer 1 is effectively a native blockchain. Layer 2 is something that hangs off it. But there was another word you mentioned, which is phygital, which I know is physical and digital. Yep. But can you just quickly explain a bit more what's phygital really means?
So phygital is, I think it's really and truthfully, it's a word that is, it's one of these keywords, isn't it? It's a word that has just come up around the industry in regards to what Gary has just said. Having a digital NFT in this case that is linked to a physical product. Part of my thinking for kind of going into this space in 2021, as I said, was the kind of rise of the PFP NFTs. And being around in the industry for so long, I'm sure Gary, I know Resh knows definitely, and I know Fernando 100% knows. Going back to, like, let's say 2017, when NFTs were first emerging on the Ethereum blockchain, and the ERC standards were first emerging for NFTs, a lot of the talk was around bringing NFTs to physical things, such as real estate was probably the prime thing at the time. And then it became kind of supply chain. So my thing in like 2021 is like, why are we still here talking about art and PFPs? Like, great, art and stuff could be done. And the company we're actually working with to do our chips for our clothing, they were working on this back then. They were the first guys to do all of the physical art NFTs that they were at the time. So yeah, it's been like a conversation for a long time. So obviously coming to 2021 and seeing everybody, running to rug pulls, like it's pretty much like, why are we still having this conversation about digital world stuff and not trying to actually connect this technology to something physical?
So you mentioned PFP there. What's a PFP?
Oh, so profile picture. So, you see a lot of NFTs or they've been misconstrued as being the actual picture itself, or the artwork itself, rather than the actual smart contract or code itself, which the art is the product, really. And the NFT or the code is arguably, some say, a receipt, proof of ownership, or certificate of ownership. So PFPs are generally like where people just are using these artworks as profile pics and making loads of them, and making obviously loads of dollars, which I could never understand why people would.
So is PFP just a new trendy term for avatar then?
Yeah, you could say so. That's it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Gary,
go on, Peter. Yeah.
You mentioned there about moving on from digital art, etc. About 18 months ago, I mentioned to you, Gary, I was interested in working with Ripple, and what I was looking at was real estate, tokenization of real estate, and in the process of selling my house now and seeing how unwieldy it is, and it's perfect for a smart contract. And I actually bought the Web3 domains for my house, and I thought, I'm going to start to put all the data about my house in there. And then hopefully I can sell it just with an XRP transaction and put it straight to my wallet. And I thought, there must be something missing here. Why hasn't anyone done this? But I think this week I saw that someone in Hong Kong has just launched a project to tokenize real estate with XRP. But why hasn't it happened? As you know, Gary, the process around real estate transactions is all well mapped. There's all just pulling information records, planning, services. And I just mapped it all out on a chart. But you can bring your utility bills in, you can do all this stuff in it, all your services, so that when you transfer ownership, you carry those through. It's a perfect real world application. Why hasn't anyone done it?
They have. The real question is, why has nobody done it successfully? Because loads of people have done it. And I remember being invited to be an advisor to a real estate project that was going to use NFTs in exactly the way you described. I said, okay, guys, what is it you are doing differently to the previous 60 projects that have tried this and have failed? And they didn't exactly inspire me with confidence when they said, what are the 60 projects? So that suggested straight away they were coming into this blind. They hadn't looked at what the market was. So there's a whole bundle of series of pains that you go through with real estate and crypto connections. The first is crypto, NFTs, all this kind of stuff is quite new. And so it's got its own learning curve, its own maturity problems, whether that's to do with the technology not being robust, lack of regulation, lack of security, lack of governance, blah, 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 blah. That's one thing. The more fundamental thing is when you attach something like that, which is quite fast-paced, edgy, with something very, very traditional, is that you start breaking rules that you didn't know existed. So in the UK, for example, there is a limit, and I can't remember what the number is now, of how many people can be the owner of a property. Okay, and there's a physical limit, and whether it's 4 or 8 or something like that, I can't remember. So straight away, you can't tokenize real estate and sell it off in slices. Because this is what loads of people were saying. Oh yeah, we'll sell 30,000 NFTs. You'll have a share in a property. We'll have a secondary market where you can buy and sell, and that way you don't pay capital gains tax. Capital gains tax or anything when you transfer the property, that kind of thing. So that falls apart straight away because of that. Then you've got another problem that actually in the UK, and I'll stay with the UK, but this happens in other countries as well. The vast majority of land in the UK is not registered anywhere. And this comes as a surprise to people because the land registry only holds records from the point at which the ownership of land is transferred. And so there's a lot of land in the UK which is owned by dukes, earls, Cambridge University, the religions, blah, 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 for which there are no records of ownership. And so you've got this thing that really you need it all on a blockchain to begin with for the land registry to be effective. So that's some things. Cash, you've put your Rash, you put your hand up.
No. I just want to mention that. How is that different to a REIT product then? Because if there's a physical limit, effectively a REIT is a flawed product by that chance because you're
No. So what you do, and this is the first thing, and I should just charge people for this consultancy straight away. And this is similar to a REIT. So a REIT is a real estate investment trust, if I remember the letters correctly, and it's a legal structure that does allow multiple people to have a beneficial interest in a property in some way. So what you can do, and this is quite funny because I was doing some stuff with a law firm one day, and the law firm said, we're not going to tell you what this is or who this is, but just look at this corporate structure for a project and tell us what you think. And I took one look at it and said, oh, it's a real estate project, is it? And they went, how do you know that? And what it was you set up what's called an SPV or a special purpose vehicle.
Right.
So it's a separate company. Say it's registered in the British Virgin Islands or somewhere, whatever. That company owns the property, right? And then you have NFTs or tokens that are in shares in the SPV. So you don't have a share of the real estate. You have a share in the company that owns the real estate, and that's permissible. That's legal. So that's typically how things are overcome like that. That's part of it. So I hope that kind of answers that. I believe REITs are specially constructed legal structures that allow up to, and I think, can you have up to 30 in a REIT or something? I think there is still a limit in some way.
So fractional ownership, that's a separate problem around some things, and there are ways around it, like an ETF. You don't physically own the aspect, you just track the value, etc. But just for, say, you want to buy my house, I've tokenized it. All the data is on the ledger. It's all there. So you don't have to wait. You know, if you're doing a property purchase in England, it takes like 3 months and plus because they're doing the land searches, they're looking at the drains, looking at any substance, and all this stuff you can actually attach to. So I've got a live land registry attached to my house, and if anyone queries that land registry, it pings me anyway. So it's I've conveyanced a house myself, and you see that you're always waiting on the solicitor because they've got 100 houses they're doing, and they do the first one, it goes to the back, and most of the time it's just waiting for the solicitor to have bandwidth.
Yep.
If all that information is already kept live on a ledger and you want to buy it, you don't have to do any due diligence because it's already there. And then the transaction can be quick. So it was, why don't we do that yet? And when you say it's very traditional, remember with the internet in the early noughties, when internet was mostly used for cat pictures and porn, Rightmove went on, they put properties online, advertised them, and it revolutionized the property market. So you can find a lot of stuff there now. If you look at a property online, it will automatically ping up. Do you want insurance on this property? Do you want your utilities? So they've got ways to attach value add things to it and revenue streams.
Yeah. Well, what I've found as well, because I know some people who have looked at running projects, is that first of all, you need land registry engaged in this, because they're in the UK, they're a critical part of it. If you don't get them doing it, it's not going to happen, because they're kind of like the designated UK agency for all that. So if you can't get them to sign up for it. But I believe that they are doing some pilots or something, some trials, and that there has been something in the press about them potentially running something on that. Because I agree, wouldn't it be fantastic if all of those details were immediately accessible and were also had some sort of authorized signature or stamp on them to say that the data is credible, like a notary type thing to notarize that the data is accurate. Yeah.
When you say the land registry, I thought it might have already been done. It pinged up as a Ripple project on the granting that they do, and it was Colombia. So they've got a similar thing. There's land disputes, people are stealing land, big corporations are moving in. So they're now trying to put all the land registry onto XRP. Well, this is the working with Ripple, so I presume it's XRP. So
no, so I think it'll be on RippleNet. Yeah. So this is where sometimes people get Ripple and XRP a little bit mixed up.
Funding project. I'd said if we use use the XRP as the NFT for the piece of land. So yeah. That was thinking of what they used. I don't know, but it was a RippleNet project. But it was land registry Colombia, and they said the same problem. We're trying to get away from land disputes by tackling it as a whole. So the partner was Colombia Land Registry and work out who owns what. So it wasn't the technology that was a problem. It was, as you say, it was the records that were a problem.
It's very rare that technology is actually the problem as to why a project doesn't work. It comes down to for those of us, and Peter and I have got the background in technology and computing to know this, you've got the old triangle of people, process, and technology. It's never technology that's a problem. It's sometimes the process is the problem. It's usually the people that's the problem. And it's the vested interests and refusal to change and that kind of thing. Because you're right, there's a whole load of projects. You know, we're talking about physicals, digital, and all this kind of stuff before. Supply chain, stock control, inventory management, real estate, physical goods. You know, extend that to healthcare. You know, again, that's the one where everyone goes, why don't we have our health records on a blockchain and then everyone could access it and have it managed via a smart contract, blah, blah, blah. I worked for a short stint in the healthcare sector to understand just how much of a nightmare trying to have an electronic patient record is. And it is unbelievably difficult. And it's got nothing to do with the technology. It's got all to do with the politics. And that's politics as in people politics of doctors claiming that they own your records and registrars claiming they do and consultants claiming they do and pharmacists claiming they do. It's just too much trouble. And I'm seeing some smiling faces there, so I guess I'm
too many things on Excel. You know, that's the problem.
Yeah. That's exactly it, Fernando. Too many spreadsheets to the back, isn't it?
Yeah. I've always said Excel's the best product in the world and also the worst product because you can do so much with it. But the problem is you can do so much with it.
So, I was going to say about Rest, probably could chime in there. And I know, Peter, you mentioned the NHS right at the beginning there. I don't know if you caught what Peter had said, Resh, but maybe you want to chime in a bit on that, on the health record stuff.
No, I just smile because I work for NHS as a program manager for cancer and diabetes for the Northwest. So I completely understand the challenges. I think Fujitsu won a huge contract back in the day, I think like 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Was worth 1 billion to do literally this, to automate the entire data capture and data sharing of patient records. Even they fail because every hospital in the country doesn't use the same system. And one of the biggest issues was that what they capture and how they capture the information varied from a certain trust. Yeah. And it doesn't read from one platform to the other platform. So they had a problem just to standardize in terms of the data capture and how we're going to store it and where we're going to store it. The logic stands, I agree with what everybody says, to put everything on the blockchain. But I just think right now, there's no standardization, even with NHS SCDs. That's the biggest nightmare.
I find it quite funny. So a number of years ago, it must be about 20 years ago, there was what was called NHS PFIT, which was the NHS patient something IT thing. So it was all about electronic patient health records. Yeah, and what they actually did, they sliced it up into regions. So as you say, Hitachi got one region, I think Accenture got another region, and some of the other big players each got regions as well. Accenture did a remarkable thing, and I've never known Accenture do this before. They actually bought themselves out of the contract. And I've never known a consultancy ever do that before. I think they paid something like £200 million.
I would have done the same.
Yeah, and I agree with them. I think they did exactly the right thing, that they actually bought themselves out of the obligation because they said this project's going nowhere. And it just didn't work. So what they eventually did was that they gave up on that whole program and they flipped it, because what that would have done, that would have introduced standards, consistency, everything like that. They kind of flipped it. And I think they eventually gave each of the practitioners, or certainly the regional ones, autonomy to build whatever they wanted. And it's like, so they kind of went from, right, we're just beginning to sort this out. We're introducing consistency. We're going to make it easier for everybody, to absolute Armageddon. And they just left the regions to get on with it. So, yeah, it's... I could spend an hour talking about that.
Yeah, let's
Windows 98
let's hope they do not go to the direction to implement RippleNet or something like that either, because it's going to be bad, really bad,
Yeah. But the other, go on, Peter.
The time you're talking about, the noughties, the early 2000s, there was a big thing with Tony Blair, and he did the technology-enabled transformation in government, and he had the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister there, and he set that up before that went south. But that was, we keep trying to do these transformation projects, and they don't do it. But if we put technology in, something like SAP, so I put SAP in a number of local authorities, put SAP in, it forces them to conform. Now, what they started to do, of course, was they tried to customize the SAP to what they were doing, as we said, digitizing the dinosaur instead of changing their processes. But I think it was quite right. The technology, I didn't need any of the technology. I'm in Milton Keynes now. We did a PPP here, off-balance sheet borrowing, and we said we're going to put in a CRM system. We're going to put Siebel in, SAP in, all these things. And we're going to put this in, and we're going to modernize with that. What they didn't know was that was just to open the door to make them change the processes. I didn't need any of that technology to get the efficiencies or the effectiveness. Yeah, but we just use that as a lever to force them to change. This is coming in. We put the business analysts in. They thought we're doing the as is and working out what they were doing to put it on the system. We didn't. We worked out where we needed to get to, and then we just worked out the as is to know what the transformation was. We were never going to code in their as-is processes. Bedfordshire, now you mentioned that, Gary, they did do that. And they effectively, they didn't buy themselves out. They found a loophole out. The council said, we're not getting what we want. We're going to terminate this contract. So the chief exec said, thank you. We'll accept your termination. Here's the liquidated damages. This is our profit. And they walked away and they got 10 million, I think. But we were losing millions every year because they just wouldn't move quick enough.
No.
But yeah, it is difficult. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, I think, I'm agreeing with JT, actually. We'll close off the conversation about the NHS in a minute. But it is a great example of using technology and thinking, oh, this will be a slam dunk because this will make things easier, and it makes a load of sense. You then start realizing, exactly as Kesh said, if you don't have standards in the first place, you're going to really struggle. I mean, Peter and I still remember fondly, we had a conversation years ago where Peter was saying how he was running some pilot training. And this ties in with my concept about why you need a business glossary and the standards and everything. Because when Peter said to me, I'm doing some pilot training, I said, oh, right, single engine, twin engines, jets, what sort of pilots? And he went, what? Yeah, you just said you're doing pilot training. I know a bit about aviation, you've got Cranfield down the road. Said, no, kind of like proof of concept type stuff. Oh, that kind of pilot. So straight away, when you've got language differences, this shows why you need a glossary of terms, you need standards and all this kind of thing. If you don't get those right, then trying to do stuff like real estate or physical products and logical and supply chain, it just ain't going to go there. So let's leave the NHS behind for now, because people have spent careers not fixing it. I don't think we're going to be able to change it more than that. JT, I wanted to bring you back in because you generally got your finger on the pulse with what's going on in the blockchain and crypto world. With the exception of the SEC now trying to prosecute anyone, anywhere, for everything. Tell us what's going on. We've got Susie joined us as well. Susie, I'll bring you into chat in a minute because I love your controversial views on things. So JT, what's happening in the crypto world?
Well, this week was pretty much what you guys saw, Coinbase, Binance, and of course on Friday, the massive checkout of, probably a couple market makers. So apart from that, I haven't seen much happening this last week, to be honest. There's always stuff happening, but, I don't think too much that is worth mentioning. Yeah.
Well, tell you what then, let's bring Susie in. For those who don't know, Susie is a legend in the crypto world because she writes some really enjoyable and controversial articles for City AM or Crypto AM, I think they actually call it. Susie, what was it you wrote the other day that stirred the fan a bit? Was it about Rishi or something?
I think I might have made a comment about how he's focusing on mathematics, but really he should be focusing on English, because the consultation paper is for the central bank digital currencies is basically a national scandal, because it's at such a high level that it excludes most people from understanding it.
Yeah, so there's a great call. For those who don't know, I think everyone, with the exception of Elena today, everyone's in the UK at the moment, which is quite novel. So HM Treasury and Bank of England currently going through a public consultation exercise to judge the appetite of people for a central bank digital currency. So this is what they're calling a digital pound. They're no longer calling it Bitcoin because that's got associations with it. For those who watch Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you may remember the first episode with the Vogon intergalactic construction fleet, who were moaning because the Earthlings didn't seem happy about the planet being destroyed. And they said, oh, well, these plans have been in the basement available for millions of years for consultation. And it seems that the Bank of England is doing something similar, because everyone I speak to who's not in the crypto world does not know about this consultation. And as Susie says, I think, did you run a query against the text to see what level of literacy it was using or something?
Exactly.
Tell us more about that.
So I used something called the Hemingway app, and I ran the consultation paper through, and I think about 45% of the lines were considered either hard or very hard to understand. And it came out at a reading age of 15, which sounds reasonable, but the national average is a reading age of 9. So it really does exclude most people. And I don't even think that even if you explain it to the most intelligent or highly educated people in this country, and you say, do you understand what programmable money is? They won't know. So even just understanding the concept of programmable money is difficult. And what really bothers me is during Brexit, we discussed Brexit to death. It doesn't matter what side you were on. It was discussed both sides all day long by everybody in households across the UK. And this isn't even being spoken about. They don't even understand that their money's changing.
Now, I've had a dinner conversations and people say, if that was happening, I would know about it.
And most people as well, I find that that most regular people are just against the cashless element. They're not against they haven't looked into how it actually functions, what the difference is, let's say, i.e. between the CBDC, which is, again, a digital currency that is completely different from a cryptocurrency, and then not to even mention different from Bitcoin, right? So most people I've seen, like, you know, friends and family, like on Facebook, like posting, oh, you know, they're going to take our cash away from us. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's a very important point. But like, you've been like basically not using cash for the best part of 30 years anyway, you know? So it's not something that cashless isn't something that was invented yesterday. You know, the more important or poignant, shall I say, factors of this is that, you know, we're creating this system, as Violet said, as Susie says, sorry, with this kind of control mechanism and multiple control mechanisms being put in place on top of it, and the excuse is, you know, anything.
Hey boy, Benny boy.
As Susie said, Brexit to COVID, you know, like, just anything, like, really to introduce this to people. So yeah, I mean, it's just really scary to see that that people are let's say taking a little bit of interest, but it's just they're just completely missing the mark. And reading a consultation, or I've seen people putting up like petitions, change.org, you know, let's not bring in a CBDC. And then when you look at the reasoning, they don't understand what they've even said in the paper. So that petition, it could get millions of signatures. Like, no one will ever listen to it because they haven't laid out clearly the points against, you know, why they don't want it. It's just, we don't want cashless. And we already know that the response to that is going to be, well, look, Visa and MasterCard have been around for like the best part of 50 years. So go away. That's literally what they're going to say. So,
Rash,
yeah.
I was going to say, Rash, you kindly put your hand up again.
No, just because since we were just talking about governments and all, just want to mention Tax London. We're doing an event on the 29th of June this month. We're trying to bring together regulators, well, hopefully regulators, but right now we have individuals from the legal world and core developers in one venue in Kensington to have a discussion called Code is Law versus Code and Law.
And Nat's told me all about it.
Yeah, Susie's going to be on that lineup as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Susie's on one of the panels. And funnily enough, I need to send you, Gary, an entry for that as well, because I know Gary's always very close to these things as well, Resh. And JT or Fernando, Resh, we should actually speak to Fernando, because Fernando would be a very good speaker, I think, for the developer side, because Fernando understands everything on the development side and the regulatory side, and he can speak definitely from a developer standpoint of view. So I'm definitely gonna, Fernando. I think I saw last time I saw you was at Zebu Live, wasn't it? Where the DJs were.
So this is the thing I love about these kind of communities, particularly in the crypto world, where you suddenly start networking without kind of realizing it. The other thing as well, and Susie kind of brought this home because I was watching everyone's expressions before, it's through learning about the world of crypto and the wider things, you start learning other things. I think several people on this call didn't know that the average reading age in the UK was 9. It's like, to me, actually, that's a more fundamental problem. Yeah, I'm not actually worried about governments writing complicated documents. I'm worried about the fact our education system is such that...
And they want to push mathematics and have that to the age of 18, but they won't teach you what money is.
And not to mention that only just before the pandemic is when they introduced for the first time computing and digital skills into schools. Yeah, right. I went to an independent. I went to ASCS, yeah. So I got a pretty kind of good education, framework in terms of technology, and I managed to complete, a beginner's GMVQ in year 9. Yeah, right. Now that was 25 years ago or so, right? So the fact that we just literally have put digital skills in front of students is absolutely crazy to me. Yeah, it's just mad. I remember being in my early 20s and people still not knowing how to use like a word processor and stuff like that. And it was just like, wow, like, so yeah, it's funny enough that, a lot of these kids, I say it to my kids all the time when I'm trying to teach them new digital skills, is that you guys spend 20% of your day, like at least typing out on the phone. Yeah. Right. So, like, how come you don't know how to, do these things? And they say, well, in school, they tell us about, going to get a job, and they like kind of flash up a CV on the screen and this is what it's supposed to look like. But then there's no actual classes that say, okay, this is how you complete your CV. This is how you go out and get a job. They're doing this right in the last 6 months of them finishing school. So it's like,
think everything moves so quickly, that everything's moving quickly, that the curriculum and education will never catch up. It's too slow.
So let's flip it and bring it back into the blockchain concept, because I think that this whole debate is fascinating, but there is a risk it kind of goes off track. So there have been a number of projects which don't seek to solve the problem we're talking about here, but do things like certification on the blockchain, because that's one of the fundamental things, isn't it? That you get your qualification and then you get your certificates and all that kind of thing. And there's a number of projects that were looking at sticking at least your education qualifications on a blockchain. And then they started hitting, again, security, anonymity, control, which funnily enough takes us back to the NHS about, who has access and all this kind of thing. And that's where, again, it comes back to, as Peter was saying a while ago, a lot of the time you end up using whatever the buzzword is of technology in order to have the conversation. And the conversation allows you to then discover what's wrong with the process. Because if you go in, I used to do it, if I go in and say, hello, I'd like to come and do a business process transformation project for you, they go, nah, that's so 1990s, 2000, BPM. No. If I say, it's happened, I'm exploring using blockchain at the moment. Oh, what does that involve? Well, what we'll do is we'll do a session where we'll get you to whiteboard out how you do stuff at the moment without using the phrase as is model. And then we'll look at future state of using this exciting technology where it's all shared and interactive, and we won't use the phrase to be model. And then before you know it, you'll map it all out, and you suddenly realize that actually you don't need this blockchain thing at all. You just need them to do the processes differently, which is why I've not made a lot of money as a blockchain consultant, because most of the time you don't need a blockchain. And
I was reading that article, Susie, that you wrote. I found it fascinating, to be honest, and actually it's a scandal. But the number of people that wouldn't understand, what they are talking about, even one phrase, is astonishing. If you could tell some of the numbers to everyone here, because I don't know if everyone read that article. It's absolutely amazing,
I'm on the blockchain distribution list. I've had some of the talks. And Accenture is their name before. Accenture, I think, are doing the lead consultant for the digital pound. If I remember
they're one
document.
They are one of several, and this is where, again, you will discover all the familiar names on these consultancies. So the Bank of International Settlements has been running a whole load of stuff, and you'll see RippleNet appearing there. You'll see Hyperledger. So you've got Hyperledger, primarily Fabric.
Ripple appear everywhere. Every single conference or event I've been to, Ripple has been there in some.
Yeah, and this is the other thing as well. There were, I'm in a few crypto groups where people say, oh, did you see Ripple's names on this? That means they must be doing blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's just that these companies are getting Ripple in, they're getting Hyperledger, they're getting IBM, they're getting Accenture, and they're just looking at what all the options are and everything.
It's the payment interface providers that are the really scary part. And so the Bank of England can sit there and say, we're not interested in your data. We don't care. And they can almost gaslight you to a point where they make you think that you're going crazy. People are like, oh, you don't want our data. You're not going to hold it. Oh, okay, maybe it's not so bad. And then you think, well, who is going to? And then they even said that the payment interface providers would be, and these will be the centralized companies that are holding everybody's data and controlling everything, and then sanctioned by law if they deem you to have been a little bit naughty or organized a protest. And they're the ones that are going to have the different levels. So if you want super privacy, or you want discounts, you can choose, but they're going to basically just suck people in with free money and discounts and this and that and the other, and they're going to get so bamboozled.
So the thing for people to bear in mind, Susie mentioned the term, I think it's actually payments intermediary provider. It's certainly PIP, okay? And it's a new term that, if you look at the Bank of England documentation, the PIPs are the providers of the wallets that will interact with the ledger, which holds all this stuff. Effectively, what they're doing is they're becoming the new retail banks. So this is where what I've done, whenever I've seen anyone complaining about how it is, see you, Lisa, thanks, Johnny. When I see anyone complaining about how the high street banks are closing, the branches are closing, I say, well, look, they're not going to need to exist in a few years, because with a digital pound, you don't need a physical presence anymore. But this is where I think the retail banks are going to have to reinvent themselves as payments intermediary providers. So it'll be HSBC, Barclays, Lloyds, all this kind of thing, who will have, just as you have one of their bank accounts as a wallet on your phone now, that will be the PIP capability. And linked in with how the UK government did a thing called open banking a few years ago, what you do is you get people to sign up with a wallet provider, and they will offer you, as Susie says, incentives. People who've got a deposit account also like insurance. Oh, maybe you'd like a mortgage, blah, 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 blah. So in a way, it's not that much different to what we've got now. It's just digitizing it.
It is actually a bit worse. It is actually a bit worse, Gary, because what they will do what, I don't know if you remember who they assigned to be the data processor for all the COVID stuff. He was an American company, right? Mm-hmm. So guess where all the data is going to end up? They're going to choose the people actually going to process that, and that for me it's scandalous, because with the CBDC, with the digital identity, they can actually know, up to the coffee that you drink every single day and where. This is ridiculous,
They can stop you from buying that coffee as well if they think that caffeine's bad for you and it's a government agenda that's been implemented.
Nah,
it's the same players, different game. Players, same game, but different rule set. It's like, let's change the rules in the middle of the game. Yeah. What was it, right? Somebody posted this up on Twitter a few weeks ago. I think, Resh, you might have seen it as well, but somebody posted up on Twitter the rules to Monopoly. And if you actually look at the rules to Monopoly, the rules to Monopoly is literally what the rules are right now. Yeah. And what the banker can do in Monopoly, which is anything he wants, is literally what is happening right now. Yeah, right. So it's funny that we call it Monopoly money, don't we? Talk about
so I'm conscious we've only got 5 minutes left. It's been quite an entertaining conversation tonight. But I wanted to bring Russell back in, because interesting, Nat mentioned about the game. And I know, Russell, you're involved in gaming in some way, aren't you? Is there anything you can share with us in the last couple of minutes?
Yeah, hello. So those of you who haven't met me, I'm Russell Bryant. I'm the founder of a startup gaming platform. We're trying to bring in traditional gamers from the Web 2 space into the Web 3, which isn't the easiest considering they all hate crypto, but hey ho. So I've definitely got my fight on for a job here. But yeah, so we sort of specialise in incubating indie games, which is great for the Web 3 space because they thrive in it. And I think the future of gaming is steering or veering towards the Web3 space. And when I say Web3 is blockchain integration, so that might be NFTs or tokenization. So, and it's providing a great sort of platform and future for these independent game developers in order for them to raise funds and actually launch their games, whereas before they were competing against AAA gaming studios who had multi-million-dollar budgets to launch games. Whereas now you can get a kid out fresh out of school who can design a game with some of the software packages out there quite easily. And all he needs is a bit of marketing, some funds, and he can launch his own app on a mobile phone, which majority of the gaming industry is going mobile now. It's over 50% now, and it's growing year on year. So these big AAA gaming studios are going to need to adapt if they're going to sort of catch on with the curve, because the industry is very similar to what happens to the adult or the porn industry many years ago, it changed overnight and decimated the recording studios based in North America and some other parts of the world, and it all became free at source, basically, the content. And you're seeing that happen in gaming now as well. So it's changing very, very quickly, and I think it's a great opportunity for the gaming industry to sort of adapt and take on blockchain. I think we'll probably be one of the first industries to actually adopt it widely. So, and you're starting to see this year, actually, there's some big strides being made. If you might have listened to some of the headlines this week, GameStop, who are a big sort of brand or American company listed on the stock exchange over there, they are partnered with a level 1 blockchain called Telos, who we work with as well. And that's really big. So any of their games on their platform that will be integrating blockchain will be through Telos. So it's nice to see these things happening, and you're going to start to see more and more of it happening. But yeah, just if any of you are interested in blockchain and gaming, then it's going to be a lot of growth this year and next year.
That's good to know. Thanks, Russell, because I always say that there are certain industries and sectors that are early adopters of technology, and we need to look at those. And the first industry is criminals, because criminals are always highly innovative, highly competitive, no regulatory constraints, so that they do all sorts of things. The one straight after that tends to be the sex industry. So the sex industry is kind of like on the boundaries of criminal and legal, but you look at the changes that's made to technology. And then the next one along is gaming, I believe, in terms of readiness to adopt things, because you typically have younger consumers and that kind of thing who are more willing to explore and try things. So, it's a fascinating space. Thanks for sharing that, Russell.
That's great. Well, I was actually going to touch on a little bit quickly, if I can, of some of the previous conversation earlier. We were talking about how some of these kids aren't being taught finance at school. And in all honesty, they don't need to. They're learning it by themselves on YouTube and some of the games that they're playing now. My kids are aged 7 to 12, and they're far more financially literate than I ever was at their age. And that's not the schools teaching them. They're learning it for themselves. So, yeah, they're going to know how to be financially independent way earlier than any of us were. So.
It's a really funny point. I've just contributed to, there is a children's online protection group. I can't remember the name of it. They've just done a big survey about children's attitude to investing in crypto and NFTs and the risks and the dangers and all this kind of thing. And they asked me to put a comment in about, having to put the guardrails in to protect children. So it's not the children who need protecting, it's the adults, because they're the ones who don't know what they're doing usually. With the kids, as you say, Russell, they tend to be pretty savvy these days. So we'll see where that goes. So anyway,
I'm just very quick on that comment. I actually disagree, because a majority of content that you actually see out there is not very good, So they always end up also learning the bad things. Things they shouldn't do. So that's why I'm up for both sides for educational learning and so on through social media. But the problem with social media is so messed up these days that actually it's more harmful to kids to learn something online through all of these channels, and actually having proper channels just for education. YouTube for me, or social media, is a bad example for people to learn. But that's why there are resources. Binance is a huge resource for educating people. There's many others out there. I think those are the ones we should be behind and supporting them in terms of financial literacy for kids. Social media is terrible wrong, and for the kids learning what they're learning there, I think they're going the wrong way, in my opinion, personally.
Yeah, so that probably links in absolutely. I'm going to have to close the call off in a moment as well, but that links in beautifully as well with the whole thing about reputation, credibility, trust. Who do you believe? Who do you know who you're speaking to, which ties in really nicely with things like decentralized identity, which Resh shared a link to a Microsoft thing that they're doing a load of stuff on decentralized ID at the moment. And this is where it's fascinating how all of this loops back, because you need new trust methods. You need ways of figuring out who you're speaking to. Are they reliable? Are they trustworthy? As I used to say, just because someone's standing on stage, that doesn't mean what they're talking about, they know about it. It just means they like standing on stage talking. So, folks, really sorry, we're going to have to close off. It's the witching hour. It's 8 o'clock in the UK. So I'd like to close this off. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. Really enjoyable discussion. Hope everyone's enjoyed it. For those who watch it on YouTube, all those Gen Zers, click on the subscribe, like, blah, 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 blah type thing. Have a great day, everybody.
See you later.
Bye all. Bye.